So this is my 1982 Suzuki GS650E. I'm making this video because, one, I don't see a lot of GS650 videos online or tutorials online, and given that it's an older bike, I would hope that there was more. And two, I just don't see many GS videos online. Most of the time it's either Yamahas or Hondas that people are demoing off of. So a couple things I wanted to note. I bought this bike 3 months ago, had to get it completely rewired, had to get the tank drained and the carbs, ultrasonic cleaned. Since then, the mechanic changed the air filter, which is that box right there, and they noticed that I was running extremely rich. Now, the previous owner increased the jet sizes, the main and pilot jet sizes, up 2 sizes. And that was probably to take into consideration the fact that he put a custom exhaust on here, which he told me was off of a Triumph, a 2017 Triumph, but I haven't actually been able to see a Triumph that has that specific exhaust on it. Unless maybe he fabricated or bent that himself, which I think might be the case there. But yeah, today what I wanted to talk about was the fact that this bike was actually not starting a couple days ago. Again, it's running rich, and what I noticed is that the throttle response when I was riding it was very poor, deteriorated, and what I realized was that the spark plugs, which there's 2 on each side, which are just in those little sockets there, pull that out, they're actually fouled. And I'll show you what that looks like in just a second, and I'll show you how I go about cleaning those. So taking out the spark plugs is probably the easiest thing you can do from a bike maintenance perspective, and taking a look at the spark plugs is probably a really good indicator of one or many things that might be wrong with your bike. So what you generally need is some sort of wrench that can get into here, but this is kind of a standard Japanese spark plug tool that I bought online that came part of a kit. And I guess put it on there, basically lefty-loosey, undo it, and then basically just loosen it up with your hand. All right, so just took out this spark plug. And as you can see, it doesn't look too bad because this is actually a new one that I put in place of the ones that I'm cleaning. And I know a lot of people online will probably be, yelling at me because I put in new 2 spark plugs and, the other ones were sort of older. As you can see, the sides look fine, but as you can see in the top, it's starting to look black. And that means that it's carbon fouled. And that's usually an indicator that the bike is running rich. And a rich mixture basically means that there's too much fuels entering the carbs, and the ratio of fuel to air is off. Having a lean bike, which means too much air, that's more of an issue that can actually have significant damage on your engine. A rich bike generally means that you're probably going to have hard starts once that carbon builds up. Throttle response might be pretty poor, but generally shouldn't have a significant impact on the engine itself. So what I will do today is I'll clean the spark plugs, all 4 of them. As you can see, I have some of the stuff right there. And in a future video, what I'm actually going to show you is how we can utilize what we call a Gunson Auto Tune, which is a spark plug that has basically a glass top there, and you can actually see the color of the flame in the combustion in the cylinder itself. And if it's rich, it will be orange, but if it's leaned out, it should be blue. And the adjustment would actually take place on this screw right here for each of the carbs, as you can see. And then after that, we're also going to do a carb sync, which basically takes advantage of these screws here. I don't know if you can see it, but there's also a screw right there, as you can see, on all 4 carbs, and basically synchronize the carbs to make sure that the vacuum for each carb is actually running at the same rate. That doesn't have too much impact once you're riding, but you should be able to hear that your bike is running and sounds better at idle. So I removed the spark plug for the 4th cylinder here, and this is what it looks like. So as you can see, this is looking a lot worse than the other one that I showed you a couple minutes ago. So I'm going to clean that and put it back in, and I'm sure that the 3rd, which is just right there, which I took the plug off of, or that little connector off of, is probably rich as well. So I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so The plugs have been cleaned and attached back into these connectors here. After I used WD-40 and a wire brush to clean them out. I haven't turned it on yet, so I wanted to see if it's actually gonna work. So here we go. Sorry. So as you can see, it turns on really nicely first try. Before, it was just trying and trying. I even had it backfire once, which sounded like a gunshot, which was pretty scary because that happened to me for the first time. But as you can probably see there, what happened was the RPM was actually at 1500. It should be at 1100. So the last thing that I'm going to do today is just show you where that idle kind of screw is. So let me just pause for a second. All right, so I'm on the right side of the bike, and it might be a little bit easier to see from here, but as you can see, between where the air intake and the carbs meet, there should be this little screw that you can see right, I can't see it, right there. And by adjusting that either left or right, you'll be able to increase the idle RPM. If it's too low, when you blip the throttle, it'll just die out. If it's too high, you're probably just using too much gas and your bike just sounds like it's trying too hard. So adjust that accordingly. If it's right, it will increase the RPM. If you turn it loose, so left, it'll decrease. So that's what I'm gonna do right now, and I should be able to get it to just around 1100 RPM.